I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that.
Political debates have increasingly become battlegrounds where logic and reason clash with rigid ideologies. Recently, Bill Maher found himself at the center of attention, challenging Whoopi Goldberg's arguments with his trademark sharp wit and directness. This wasn't just another celebrity confrontation, it was a stark reminder of how certain narratives unravel under scrutiny. It's important to recognize that due to America's complex racial history, perspectives from black individuals can often differ significantly and sometimes feel unexpected. Maher, known for challenging both ends of the political spectrum, took his latest exchange with Goldberg to another level. As she defended her stance with the familiar progressive rhetoric often heard on The View, Maher countered with hard facts, exposing contradictions that put her on the defensive. The debate highlighted just how disconnected elite liberal viewpoints have become from the real-life struggles of everyday Americans.
Clash. It served as a stark reminder for those holding on to narratives that unravel when examined closely.
Understand that part of our sorry racial history in this country is that the point of view from a black person is often going to be very different and sometimes shocking.
Before diving into the debate itself, it's crucial to understand the key figures involved. Whoopi Goldberg, a staunch advocate of liberal policies, has often dismissed criticism of the left as mere right-wing propaganda. In contrast, Bill Maher isn't a conservative, he's a traditional liberal who resists rigid ideological labels. This fundamental difference set the stage for a compelling and thought-provoking exchange.
I watch your show all the time, so I know that you're a comic, but you basically go after Trump and Biden, both of them. And a lot of people are not happy with you about that. I'm
not equally.
Well, not equally, because you know that Trump is doing more dangerous.
Of course. I mean, I don't think anybody was more out front on that danger than I.
Confrontation began when Whoopi downplayed concerns about crime, the economy, and the struggles of working-class Americans. Maher quickly pushed back, emphasizing that issues like inflation and public safety have a far greater impact on people's daily lives than symbolic activism. Instead of directly engaging with his points, Whoopi deflected with a vague response that sidestepped the core of the issue. As Maher pressed on, she fell back on outdated talking points about economic policies, arguments that seemed increasingly disconnected from the realities ordinary Americans face.
Going to give up power. Long ago, when everybody was laughing at me and said, you smoke too much pot, and I said, I smoke just the right amount of pot, because plainly, I was using the term slow-moving coup before he was elected the first time.
That's right.
I said, this guy is never going to concede power. It's impossible to imagine him going, I lost.
Maher, never one to let a weak argument slide, exposed a critical contradiction in Whoopi's position. He pointed out that progressive elites, especially white liberals, often claim to advocate for marginalized communities while overlooking the issues those communities prioritize. Polls consistently show that black and Hispanic voters are more concerned with economic stability and crime than with the ideological debates dominating social media. Whoopi's reluctance to acknowledge this disconnect only underscored the weaknesses in her argument.
Saying anything against Biden because I feel, not that I have so much power, and you have some more than I do, obviously, but
I don't know about that.
Are you afraid that you might, influence the people who are on the fence?
I think you lose bond with my audience has always been I don't pull a punch.
Yeah.
My bond with my audience is you're not going to like everything I say, but I'm saying what I really think is true.
Right.
That's.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And look, Biden just presents as old. It's not really fair.
No.
Because he's almost the same age. Trump is almost the same age as...
The real turning point came when Maher shifted the discussion to political hypocrisy. He brought up the controversies surrounding Hunter Biden, highlighting how Democrats who often preach accountability tend to fall silent when scandals involve their own party. Whoopi, visibly uncomfortable, tried to downplay Biden's actions, arguing that the situation was being exaggerated. But Maher wasn't about to let her off the hook that easily.
It doesn't present that way. You look at somebody right away, you can kind of just sum them up. I mean, we are not young, but we don't present as old.
Yeah.
Biden does. I saw him yesterday making that speech.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, he's cadaver-like.
But his brain is good. He's still great.
Well, here's what I said. Like when I came back after the strike in September, I said,
Maher reminded the audience of President Biden's own words that no one is above the law just before granting a pardon to his own son. This glaring double standard, he argued, is exactly why so many Americans feel disillusioned with the political system. If the rules only apply when convenient, then they aren't really rules at all. Whoopi's defense wavered, unable to withstand the weight of Maher's logic.
A conservative once said to me, what you guys in the liberal side of it don't get about Donald Trump is we don't like him either.
Yeah.
It's just that in this country, it's binary. I mean, gender may not be binary, but politics is. You only get two choices. And the stuff that they are afraid of, they see Donald Trump as a...
As the conversation grew more intense, Maher turned his attention to the media's role in shaping public perception. He criticized mainstream outlets for suppressing the Hunter Biden story ahead of the election, accusing them of prioritizing narrative control over journalistic integrity. Rather than engaging with the evidence Maher presented, Whoopi brushed off his argument as just another right-wing conspiracy theory.
Buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
Armed with facts, Maher reminded Whoopi that even left-leaning journalists had admitted the Hunter Biden story was deliberately suppressed for political reasons. He argued that this, at its core,
they buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they thought, we can't risk this swinging the election to Trump. We'll tell them after it's over.
For the White House, like in 2013, to hint, hey,
Hint.
spend more time with the grandkids. That would not be a good idea, Ruth. And she didn't take the hint, and she was not in good health, and she stayed too long, and she ruined her legacy and got the Supreme Court now to be a pretty right-wing organization. Said Biden shouldn't do that. But, ego, he's Dracula. He has crossed oceans of time to be here, and he's not going to give it up now.
Armed with facts, Maher reminded Whoopi that even left-leaning journalists had acknowledged the deliberate suppression of the Hunter Biden story for political reasons. He argued that this exemplifies the real danger of woke ideology. It's not about truth or justice, but about controlling the narrative. Once again, Whoopi had no solid rebuttal, opting instead to change the subject.
Is a lot closer to the home. It's like my kid is coming home from school, and they're not allowed to tell me if they're transitioning. The school is going to take the side of the kid over the parent. Stuff like that. There is a lot of crazy stuff on the left. This book, there's stuff that each side is going to like and probably stuff they're not going to like so much.
The conversation then took a broader turn as Maher criticized the progressive movement for creating an environment where questioning its beliefs is treated as an act of hostility. He pointed out that working-class Americans, the very people progressives claim to represent, are rejecting the extreme narratives pushed by media elites. Rather than acknowledging this reality, Whoopi continued to dismiss legitimate concerns as mere right-wing rhetoric. Maher then shifted focus to the changing political landscape, explaining how the Democratic Party's sharp leftward turn has alienated key voter demographics, including Black and Hispanic Americans. Polls consistently show that these communities tend to be more patriotic, more supportive of law enforcement, and less tolerant of unchecked illegal immigration than white progressives. Yet, instead of listening to their real concerns, Democrats continue to cater to elite activists, further widening the disconnect between the party and the voters it claims to champion.
And you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything, and I know that you're...
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
That's why Trump could get reelected.
Yeah.
So the term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bashed. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social injustice.
Throughout the debate, Whoopi Goldberg struggled to defend her positions when confronted with Maher's fact-based arguments. Rather than addressing his points directly, she repeatedly fell back on vague talking points, emotional appeals, and outright deflection. This is a common issue among many figures within the woke movement, where narratives often rely more on ideological commitment than on objective reality. A key moment came when Maher pressed Whoopi on the genuine concerns of Black and Hispanic Americans. Instead of acknowledging that these communities prioritize economic stability and public safety over progressive activism, she attempted to shift the conversation to unrelated topics. This moment exposed a fundamental weakness in woke politics. the inability to confront inconvenient truths when ideological commitments are challenged. Figures like Whoopi often rely on changing the subject rather than engaging with the actual argument.
I'm not going to defend Donald Trump ever, but I would never say that we should put the swastika on the cap, because I think you can hate Donald Trump. You can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country. I don't want to live in that country. I don't want to live in the country where I hate half the country, and I don't hate half the country.
How dare you disagree with me?
With her arguments effectively dismantled, Whoopi resorted to playing the victim. She accused Maher of misrepresenting her views and making her look bad. However, Maher wasn't distorting anything, he was simply holding up a mirror, and Whoopi didn't like what she saw. When faced with hard facts, she had no legitimate response.
Donald Trump situation is, what's going to get him elected is this woke stuff that a lot of people in this country just don't go for.
Well, one thing that I break with is that you can disagree on candidates, but when one talks about literally upending the entire democracy, that's my heart out. There's not an equal comparison.
The most brutal aspect of Maher's critique was that he didn't even need to raise his voice. With calm precision, he dismantled Whoopi's arguments one by one, leaving her with nowhere to turn. Visibly shaken, Whoopi could only offer vague rebuttals that did little to restore her credibility. Ultimately, this debate wasn't just about Whoopi Goldberg, it reflected a broader shift in American politics. More people are beginning to see through the double standards and contradictions within the woke movement. Maher, once a liberal icon, has become one of its fiercest critics, not because he changed, but because the movement abandoned its core principles.
And originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want. Okay. Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left, but don't tell me the left I think they're the bigger threat. But don't tell me that the left hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
This debate with Whoopi Goldberg highlights a deeper divide within liberalism. Maher represents an older generation of liberals who champion free speech, rational debate, and a focus on practical issues. In contrast, the woke movement has increasingly prioritized ideological purity, cancel culture, and social activism over real problem solving. This shift has left many traditional liberals feeling alienated from the movement they once supported. Maher's critique underscores how the Democratic Party has veered so far left that it often fails to address the concerns of everyday Americans. Issues like inflation, crime, and education matter far more to the average voter than debates about gender pronouns or microaggressions. Yet, woke activists continue to dominate public discourse, pushing an agenda that many liberals see